Welcome back to the Evan Phillips Show, guys. In this episode, we're going to talk about why you should not use a debit card. Stay tuned. As you just heard in this episode, we're talking about why you do not want to use a debit card, and then I'm asking two questions. The first question that I'm asking is, how do you pay for things? And the second question I'm asking is, how do you protect your debit card transactions? Now, the first question I asked, how do you pay for things? I typically would get a response, well, I use my debit card, I go to the store, I swipe it as credit, and it's kind of like a credit card. Or is it? Sometimes there is a lot of confusion around that. So when you're swiping a debit card, you're simply allowing the merchant to withdraw funds from your checking account. So if you look at the back of this debit card, you will see there's a black magnetic strip. Some of the newer cards are using the EMV chip technology, which is more secure, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. So the problem with debit cards is your account and routing number are embedded in this magnetic strip. This links merchants directly to your bank account. So in my eyes, this is a problem. You do not want access to your checking account and routing number through a means of a debit card. Here are just a few reasons why. Number one, your debit card is attached directly to the funds in your bank account. So if something were to happen, whether there's a fraud transaction that goes through or you lose your debit card, the funds directly in your account will be affected. So let's say that you're going to pay rent on the first of the month, and on the 29th, Mr. Joe picks up your card and swipes for $5,000. Now, I'm not saying you can't get that money back, but in that interim, you're going to be waiting for a claim to be approved that would otherwise not be necessary. So that could cause late rent payment, which could impact your credit and lead to a lot of other things that are not good for you. So another reason you want to avoid a debit card are debit card skimmers. These are devices that people use. They may set up at an ATM, they may remove an existing card reader, or add an additional card slot next to the actual slot. This can be confusing to people because they assume that it's the slot for the debit card, which it looks like it should be, but it's actually just a way for them to capture your information that's embedded on that debit card we just talked about. So if you think about this, this poses a huge threat to your bank account and the money that you've worked so hard to save for. Now, some debit cards use an RFID chip inside of the car, which can be read by specific devices. Now, I wouldn't say this is the most common way, but it is another opportunity for the hard-earned money in your bank account to be taken from you. So, if I were you, I probably wouldn't do that. I would do something else, which we'll discuss here in just a moment. Another reason you would not want to use a debit card, there are no rewards. In very little to slim to none situations, you may find a credit union or a bank that offers some sort of program, but it's typically not on par with what a credit card would get you for, gas back percentages or fuel or whatever the reward is. So this is another huge issue. And another reason you would not want to use a debit card, it doesn't build your credit. Now, initially in that first question, we talked about people who say, well, I use a debit card and I swipe it as credit. This does not build your credit, guys. This simply allows the merchant to pull those funds from your account through a credit transaction. Yes, a credit transaction is more limited than a debit transaction because you don't have the ability to take out cash. So if you think about it, if you swipe your card as a debit, you have to enter a PIN number, which gives you more access to other options like requesting cash back at a register or withdrawing funds from an ATM. When you swipe it as credit, you simply enter your zip code and you scribble some foreign chicken language on a piece of paper that you'll never see again, and you get what you want. So this poses another reason you do not want to use a debit card for these sort of transactions. Now, some people may ask, well, how do I withdraw money from an ATM if I don't have a debit card? Well, there is a thing called an ATM card, guys. So an ATM card simply allows you to pull funds from an ATM. You'll notice an ATM card does not have a Visa or a MasterCard logo, which means it will not be accepted at any merchant. So you can go to any store, neither one of these stores will accept that as a method of payment, since there is no Visa or MasterCard logo or the ability to even make that transaction. So this is actually a way to safeguard your account. I'd say an ATM card is more safe because you do need a PIN number to access any funds, and it can only be withdrawn from an ATM that has a camera attached to it. So I think you're less likely to have a fraudulent situation using an ATM card. Well, I hope this has given someone insight in regards to how you're making your transactions and if you're being safe and responsible with the way that you're making your purchases, especially coming up on the holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, etc. There's typically a lot of people making transactions, and these are times where hackers and skimmers and scammers are placed and trying to get more access to your funds. They know you're busy and you may miss something. So a lot of times these people will use store names that you frequently visit, and it may throw you off. So I would highly recommend reviewing your transactions in addition on a regular basis, even on your credit cards, just to make sure that everything on there is something that you've purchased. So these are just some tips to really help you guys. Number one, be a little bit more secure with your transactions, be financially responsible, build credit, and earn rewards. Well, I hope you guys have learned something from this, and I hope that if you guys have any questions, you'll leave it in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching this episode of the Evan Phillips.